All right, welcome back to the channel. So, according to Eddie Hearn, Deontay Wilder may be forced to pull out of the Tyson Fury fight, which would, of course, open a fight between Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So Deontay Wilder, the WBC, the former WBC heavyweight champion of the world, still getting used to that. After a very long title reign, I gotta put the word former in there. Former WBC heavyweight champion of the world has a rematch set to take place against Tyson Fury, who beat him in the second fight in their second fight. Now, Eddie Hearn, who was a promoter out of the UK and a promoter for Anthony Joshua, the holder of the other three belts, the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO, and the promoter for Dillian Whyte, who is the mandatory challenger for the WBC belt, says that he believes that Deontay Wilder is going to be forced to pull out of the fight against Tyson Fury. So, of course, what do they want to do? Hey, the next guy up is who? Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte versus Tyson Fury instead of Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. So let's look and see whether or not this is realistic, but what this is really about, okay? Because it's not realistic, but it really is about something, okay? First, Deontay Wilder is not going to be forced to pull out of a fight that has not been made yet. They haven't negotiated it yet, so there's no need to pull out of it. It hasn't actually been arranged. So just from technically, he can't pull out of something that wasn't arranged. But what Eddie Hearn means is he may not actually take that fight. So why wouldn't he take the fight? What situations could make it where he would be forced not to take that fight? One, he had an injury, right? Dillian Whyte himself said it. Hey, Deontay Wilder's injured, so hey, WBC, you need to order a fight between me and Tyson Fury, right? That pitch of Dillian Whyte is the same pitch that Eddie Hearn is throwing. Well, we hear that Deontay Wilder's injured. Let's set aside that fight so we can get what the world really wants to see. Dillian Whyte versus Tyson Fury. Look, man, Deontay Wilder does not have to pull out of that fight. The fight's not made. We don't even know when it's going to be made. Okay? So, Deontay Wilder had surgery at least a month ago. Whatever was going through was at least a month ago. He's healing. He's letting his wounds heal up. He's going to eventually get to a point where he's going to negotiate a date for himself, right? For himself that works for him. Okay, if it doesn't work for him, then the fight can't go off on a certain date. That's all that's going to be. Tyson Fury cannot fight somebody else without Deontay Wilder saying okay. If they negotiate for a date, the date for the fight is the negotiation. Now, I do believe that they might have had. Oh no, I think originally they had a date by which Deontay Wilder needed to exercise his rematch clause, right? So he couldn't just stand around and wait a year and everybody's waiting whether or not he's going to actually decide to do it. That he had to actually exercise that rematch clause within a reasonable amount of time. But from what I understand, once the rematch clause is exercised, they have to enter into negotiations. And once all that, other than I think maybe some of the things that could have been worked out as part of the previous agreement, which would survive that agreement and then be placed into and then be part and parcel to the agreement that they entered into for the third fight. Like salary, like I know they already negotiated one. It's a 60-40 split for the winner. They did that, but I doubt very much that they could negotiate for a venue and for the date that venue would be available in prior to their second fight. So what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to still decide where and when the fight's going to be. So where is a big thing? Because the United States of America can't have it right now. The UK can't have it right now. Where they're considering sending people Deontay Wilder might not feel safe. Why would Deontay Wilder go, like they said something about Macau, right? I've heard things about Macau, heard things about, the Middle East, things like, Canada. I don't even know how you get into Canada. I suspect that Canada has just as many protocols in place as the United States does. But, I know that they may be lacking it up or whatever. But why would Deontay Wilder have to take a fight where he felt like it was safe? Where it's not safe. There's so many ways that Deontay Wilder, if he doesn't want to make the fight happen before he feels all the way back and refreshed, man, then he's not going to have to do that. So he's not going to be forced out of it, despite the fact that so many people are seemingly in the UK promotional circles, because I am starting to differentiate, right, UK fans from UK PR companies, right? If you look at I have a news feed, right? Where I get boxing news from other places outside of the United States. Hits me on my phone. Every article that comes out, I get to see it. If I feel like reading it, I read it. If I don't feel like reading it, I don't read it. But a lot of times you get the same article through 5, 6, 7 different publications. And they don't sound like they're not written the same way, but they're getting an interview that is set up by somebody in public relations for Tyson Fury, or somebody from public relations from Matchroom Boxing, and they're feeding these guys story after story after story after story, and so when they feed them stories, and one guy writes a story, then somebody else hears about the story, and then they follow up and piggyback on that. That winds up being a big echo chamber coming out of I believe out of the promotional companies in the UK, that being Queensland / Top Rank, right? And Matchroom. So you just see a really big push for these guys to try to get the UK heavyweights to fight one another. And that is cool. I don't mind that at all. I really wish that there had been people that were out there trying to push for when all of the belts were in the United States just last year, that there would have been people that would be pushing we need to make Anthony Joshua needs to step aside. Anthony Joshua needs to go get a new trainer. You did hear a lot of that stuff, but you didn't hear it in the dismissive fashion that you're hearing it being pushed on Deontay Wilder. So no, Deontay Wilder is not going to be forced. Is not going to be forced to pull out of that fight. The mechanism, the noise machine going out in there in the UK about Tyson Fury, and even the things that they say about Tyson Fury being the top paid fighter, all this, man, dude, all this nonsense is a bunch of marketing push up out of those promotional companies in the UK, and honestly, not to be taken too seriously. You can see in the United States the same thing. You see the same big push for fighters like Vasily Lomachenko, right? Where, a reasonable boxing fan, and that is usually a guy or a woman that has been into the sport of boxing for a good amount of time, right? Where you can see the ebbs and flows of boxers, where you can see them come into boxing and how they go out of boxing. You can see how they rise in boxing and how they fall in boxing, and track along the medium narratives that go along with that, right? Guy like Monster Inoue being built up by Steve Kim and ESPN. All of a sudden, despite nobody knowing who the hell he is, he's sitting up there at number 4 in the pound for pound list. And the only reason that he is getting notoriety in the United States is because the media picked him out and put him there. Right. So you see it in the United States, you see it in the UK, but all of that conversation around Tyson Fury, about Deontay Wilder being forced to pull out of the fight, or allow Tyson Fury to fight somebody else, it's just a bunch of nonsense. Now, the combination of those two subjects the two people that are talking about it, Dillian Whyte and Eddie Hearn, is obvious. Dillian Whyte is just full of it. I believe that if the WBC actually did what Dillian Whyte asked him to do and say, no, well, we heard your interview, you're injured, so we'll do you like, this is the WBC talking, we'll do you like we did Devin Haney, right? We'll just set it aside because we don't know, and not from a champion point of view, but from a mandatory championship. We're going to make you the second mandatory. We're going to make you we're going to enforce the mandatory, because actually they couldn't enforce the rematch clause. No, we don't believe that this fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury is going to happen quickly enough. No, we're going to enforce the mandatory. We need that mandatory. We need that mandatory next, right? If the WBC did that with Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury, Dillian Whyte still wouldn't take that fight. Dillian Whyte still wouldn't make that fight because Dillian Whyte had that opportunity several times. If Dillian Whyte really believed that he could have beat Tyson Fury, like that he could beat Deontay Wilder, and he was the type of fighter that acts, he could be the WBC champion right now if he hadn't ducked out on Dominic Brazil and ducked out on Luis Ortiz. He had plenty of opportunity to be there, but he didn't. He decided he didn't want it. So I believe that it's still going on. He's going to try to, until I see him actually get in the ring and actually accept a fight for a championship fight or some reasonable scenario to get it. I'm just believing that he's just talking so that he can get his mid-range, so he can get his Oscar Rivas paydays, his Christian Hamer paydays, his Derek Chisora paydays, Joseph Parker paydays, because Dillian Whyte has made a lot of money acting like he wanted to fight Deontay Wilder. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think. And with that, I'm out. Peace.